जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी जय यशोदा नंदना जय ब्रज जन रंजना जय यमुना तीरवन चारी जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभा जय गिरिवरधारी जय गिरिवरधारी जय यशोदा नंदना जय ब्रज जन रंजना जय यमुना तीरवन चारी जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा जय कुंज बिहारी जय श्री श्री राधा माधव जी की जय श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी की जय श्री श्री गौनिताय जी की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय श्रील गुरुदेव की निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Hare Krishna Prabhu's Mataji's, we are reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is. Chapter 7, Knowledge of the Absolute, text number 5. Apareyam mitastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhuta mahabhaho yaedam dharayate jagat. Apareyam mitastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhuta mahabhaho yaedam dharyate jagat. Prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhuta mahabhaho yaedam dharyate jagat. Let's look at the word to word. Apara, inferior. Iyam, this. Itaha, besides this. Tu, but. Anyam, another. Prakritim, energy. Vidhi, just try to understand. Me, my. Param, superior. Jiva bhutam, comprising the living entities. Mahabhaho, O mighty armed one. Yaya, by whom? Idam, this. Dharyate, is utilized or exploited. Jagat, the material world. Translation and transcendental purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Please respond. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior energy of mind which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Purport. Here it is clearly mentioned that living entities belong to the superior nature or energy of the Supreme Lord. The inferior energy is matter manifested in different elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Both forms of material nature, namely gross, earth, etc., and subtle, mind, etc., are products of the inferior energy. The living entities who are exploiting these inferior energies for different purposes are the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. And it is due to this energy that the The distinction between the living entities and the Lord is described in Srimad Bhagavatam 10:87-30 as follows. Aparimita dhruvas tanubhrato yadi sarvagatas tarhina shasyateti niyamo dhruvanetarata ajani chayan mayam tad avimucha niyantra bhavet samam anujanatam yad amatam matadushtaya. O Supreme Eternal, if the embodied living entities were eternal and all-pervading like you, then they would not be under your control. But if the living entities are accepted as minute energies of your Lordship, then they are at once subject to your supreme control. Therefore, real liberation entails surrender by the living entities to your control, and that surrender will make them happy. In that constitutional position only can they be controllers. Therefore, men with limited knowledge who advocate the monistic theory that God and the living entities are equal in all respects are actually guided by a faulty and polluted opinion. The Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by him. These living entities are his superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme, but they are never equal to the Lord in quantity of power. While exploiting the gross and the subtle inferior energy matter, the superior energy, the living entity, forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity. But when the living entity becomes free from the influence of the illusory material energy, he attains a stage called mukti or liberation. The false ego, under the influence of material illusion, thinks, I am matter and material acquisitions are mine. His actual position is realized when he is liberated from all material ideas, including the conception of his becoming one in all respects with God. Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be one, only one of the multi energies of Krishna. And when this energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious or liberated. Jai Srila Prabhupada, Transcendental Purports Ki Jai. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate singing, sometimes we're down. So it just goes like a wave, It's not consistent. The idea in devotional service to be always consistent. That is one of the hallmarks of a devotee, that is always consistent. And is constantly striving to improve. Always trying, thinking that I am falling short. Often Prabhupada was concerned when he would ask the well-being of devotees, and devotees would say, Prabhupada, yes, it's going very nice, devotional service, wonderful. Prabhupada was genuinely concerned. And when devotees to say, Prabhupada, I'm struggling, Prabhupada was really happy that, you're thinking that you're really struggling. We should always think that we are not doing enough. We are always falling short of the standards. I mean, of course, we should always try to follow the standards, but we should genuinely feel that it's not enough, because devotional service is unlimited. There is never a limit to it. So always we should feel that I'm not doing enough and constantly strive to improve with the genuine attempts. Jai Jagannath Baldev Subhadra Maharani ki. Jai Shri Gauranga. So from that perspective, Krishna is started off this chapter, he's saying that, Arjuna, I'm going to give you that knowledge, knowing which actually nothing else remains to be known. And you will be completely free from all doubts. Asamshayam samagram, the first verse, 7.1, which says Asamshayam samagram. By knowing this, and if the supreme authority Krishna is speaking, naturally, as long as one is having the devotional attitude, there's no way he can be in darkness or ignorance, right? And the same goes with Krishna's bona fide representatives, like Srila Prabhupada. The knowledge that Prabhupada presented is coming in the disciplic succession. So he's completely free from any of the defects that we human beings or we conditioned living entities are accustomed to. It's completely free from all the 4 defects. So that knowledge is as good as receiving directly from Krishna. So that is the connection between the bona fide spiritual master and Krishna. We'll discuss that later a little bit as we go through the discussion today. So then Krishna said that, having said that this knowledge is so powerful that you won't need anything else to be known. At the same time, Krishna speaks in 7.3 that people who are actually willing to receive this knowledge are very, very rare. Extremely rare. Devotional service is a rarity. So then he goes on to explain that what is this knowledge. So starting from the last verse, Krishna is now trying to explain what is that knowledge by which our illusion is removed and we truly understand our constitutional position, as Prabhupada very nicely explained in this purport and the previous purport. So in the last verse, Krishna said there are 2 types of energies. Of course, Krishna has multifarious energies. Parasa Shaktir Vividheva Shruyate. The verse says, Prabhupada quotes this often from Upanishad, that Parasa Shakti, he's got multifarious energies, but as Rangamaya Prabhu nicely explained, that they can be broadly classified into 3 categories, like your internal energy or the spiritual energy, external energy or the material energy, and then there is a marginal energy. So the living entities are qualified or classified as marginal potency because they can be in association of the spiritual energy, which is our true nature, or we can also have the tendency to associate with the material energy because we have that minute independence. So Tathastha Shakti. So these are the 3 principal categories of energies. So Krishna explained in the last verse that he talked about the inferior nature or apara prakriti. And that is referred to here also in this verse. Apareyam itastvanyam. That means beyond that apara prakriti or the inferior nature, there is something superior. So the apara prakriti is your material elements and the gross and the subtle elements. And then the para prakriti is, as Krishna explains nicely here, is the jiva or the jiva bhutani, as explained here. That jivas, all of us, or living entities, are part of Krishna's spiritual nature. So this is a very, very important verse that Krishna is speaking, continuing from the knowledge that he gave in the 2nd chapter, that we are actually not this body, but this immortal soul. So what is the quality of the soul, Krishna is explaining here, is actually spiritual nature that is directly coming from Krishna. Of course, everything is an emanation from Krishna, but one distinction that Krishna makes in the previous verse and this verse is that the material energy is considered bhinna prakriti, means separated energy. And Prabhupada gave a very nice example that when Prabhupada is speaking, when devotees were there, of course, they had the physical presence of Prabhupada, and he was directly speaking to them, he was there physically. And then the same time when the devotees were hearing Prabhupada's recording on the tape, both are Prabhupada's voice only, but the recording is a separated energy. It's a very nice example to understand, analogy to understand, that both are same in a way, but one is actually separated from the person. Is actually a separated energy, in the sense that Krishna is not directly involved in the management of external energy, because external energy is handed over to Maya, Mahamaya, and she will carry out all the activities under his supervision. Maya dakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam, as Krishna says, that everything is carried out under his direction or supervision. But he is not interfering in the activities of the material nature, because that is not his nature. His nature is spiritual. His nature is entirely conducted by the spiritual energy in the spiritual world, where he is having wonderful eternal association with his associates and devotees. Of course, because we are also his children, he is concerned about our welfare. And that is why he keeps sending from time to time, either he appears himself or he sends his representatives to reclaim us. And this word reclaim is very nice. If you think about it carefully, reclaim means that actually it's our nature is not here. That's why it's called reclaim. There is otherwise it is just been called claim. Reclaim means we are supposed to belong there. We came back here again. We have to go back. Reclaim. So that is why we should understand when Prabhupada uses these words. It's not without a reason. The reason is because we are not belonging. We don't belong here. This nature is foreign to us, and that's why Krishna comes or he sends the representatives to reclaim us back to the spiritual world, because that is our original place. And time and again we hear, and Prabhupada is trying to explain that why this nature is foreign to us. And always we find incompatibility between our nature and the material nature. That is why there is frustration. That is why we are subject to miseries, because we are not supposed to be miserable. That is our nature. But why do we have to go through the miseries? That is because we have forcefully accepted something that is not natural to us. But because of the illusory power of the material energy, which is very strong, we cannot belittle the power of the material energy. It is so powerful that it makes us feel that actually this is a reality. This is the actual place. This is our actual constitutional position. That is why the illusion is so powerful. And often Prabhupada, the devotees used to ask Prabhupada that, what are you praying, Prabhupada, whenever you bow down before the deities? Prabhupada always says, I am always praying that let me not be influenced by the material energy, because the material energy is so powerful. And all these pure devotees, very humbly, because they are genuinely under the protection of the spiritual energy, but they are acting like one of us who conditioned souls who are always struggling in the material world. They always put themselves in our position to say that we are always praying that we are not influenced by this material energy. That's why we are always taking shelter of the holy name, always taking shelter of the lotus feet of Krishna. Prahlad Maharaj also praised this in the 7th canto, 9th chapter, that, please let me be protected from the influences of material energy. It's so powerful. I want to always be under the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Right? So this is the knowledge that Krishna is presenting here. Of course, he will continue beyond this. So three things. So we know that Bhagavad Gita has 5 subject matters, like Prakriti, Purusha, or Ishvara, Prakriti, then Jiva, and Karma and Kala. These are the 5 topics, of which these 3 things, like Prakriti, Jiva, and Ishvara, are nicely explained in these few verses. So what is the nature of each of them? And so we should understand that this very clearly. This is a very, very important knowledge, and that's why Krishna is emphasizing that having understood this knowledge properly, in the proper system of disciplic succession, then you'll never be in illusion. You'll never have any doubts. Of course, so it's upon us, the onus is on us to really sincerely study. Prabhupada spent so much time not only translating this, but if you notice the audio archive of Prabhupada lectures, there are so many lectures on each of these verses. Starting in the first, there are 15 lectures in second verse, third verse, like this. There are 30, 40 lectures in the first 5, 6 verses. That should tell us how important they are. So this chapter is extremely important, and we should understand really, by the mercy of Prabhupada, he has given us so much, so we should try to meditate on these purports. So before we get into the little more details of this verse itself, it would be good for us to just quickly summarize the process of creation, because everywhere these things will keep coming up in terms of what is matter, what constitutes the material world, and how does the living entity interact with this material world, because these are the questions also asked later by devotees in Bhagavatam. So particularly, it's important to note the conversation between Mother Devahuti and Kapila Dev, son. So the 3rd canto, starting from 25th chapter all the way to 28th, 29th chapter, is a very nice description. And especially in 26th chapter, Prabhupada, Kapila Dev is explaining the process of creation. That's actually the foundational subject matter to understand creation. Kapila Dev is the authority, Sankhya Yoga. So just to summarize, so the very first thing that happens is, of course, we know that he, as we said, he has nothing to do with the material world. He's not interested in the material world. But for the purpose of reclaiming conditioned souls who violently objected to his, objected to he being the supreme, the spiritual world, and we serving him, because of our minute independence, we wanted to disobey and have the same enjoyment mentality that Krishna has. Because we are coming from Krishna, naturally we have the same mentality, same nature, same quality. But we are misusing that quality. It's perverted, the material world. So having had the tendency to enjoy separately, there was no other option but for Krishna to create this material manifestation. Otherwise, there's no need. Spiritual world is many, many, many times bigger and obviously more opulent than the material world. So what is the need for this material world? It's only for us. It's like a rehabilitation center for us to correct our mistakes and then go back, hopefully. So Krishna first expands as Balram, then Balram expands as Sankarshan. Then from Sankarshan, the first quadruple expansion, Chaturvyuha, comes of Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. Then from that second Sankarshan comes Narayana. From Narayana comes the second Chaturvyuha. Again, Vasudeva, Sankarsana, Aniruddha, and Pradyumna. And from the second Sankarshan comes Mahavishnu. So we can see that Mahavishnu, who is himself so powerful, is only a part of 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 Krishna. Expansion of expansion of expansion of Krishna. So many times removed from Krishna. So that tells us that Krishna is actually far away from this material creation in one sense. But at the same time, because of his omnipotency, he is very well aware of whatever is going on. Right? And he has, obviously his energies are working everywhere. So he knows exactly. What is that verse? Indirectly and directly, the very first verse of Bhagavatam, it says that directly and indirectly Krishna is all cognizant. He knows everything, what is going on. So, So then after this, the Mahavishnu, of course, we know that he's lying down on the causal ocean. And then from his bodily pores, all the universes are coming out. But when these universes come out, actually they are just a lump of matter. There's nothing else to it. It's just a lump of matter. It's the inferior nature, as Krishna explains here already in the 4th chapter. It's just that it is not manifested separately as all these elements. It's all one composite lump, just one aggregated lump. That's it. And that is called pradhana. That is nothing else. It is just a lump of matter. And as we have seen many times, that matter by itself, as Prabhupada also explains in the purport, by itself does not have any potency to act. So unless and until the Lord does something, the matter will not manifest into its various constituent elements. So Mahavishnu just glances at this pradhana, and that glance, through the glance, Shambhu, or Lord Shiva, is in contact, comes in contact with the lump. And the lump, actually, the personified material energy is Durga Devi. And that's how Lord Shambhu or Shiva comes in contact with Durga Devi. And then Krishna or Mahavishnu injects all the living entities through his glance via Shambhu into the womb of Durga Devi or material nature. And that's when the agitation happens and the Pradhana becomes Mahatattva. So that is the difference between Pradhana and Mahatattva. Mahatattva is the active state and Pradhana is the inactive state. So within Mahatattva, the first thing that comes out is a false ego, because it's the false ego that keeps us away from Krishna. That is the first thing, the most important thing, as Prabhupada explains here. False ego means I am this body and everything that I possess is also mine, related to the body. So this false ego will never go. I mean, I was hearing one earlier lecture of Gauranga Prabhu very nicely explained the pastime of Prahlad Maharaj and Nrsimhadev. He was saying that and Hiranyakashipu, when he was performing the austerity, and when Lord Brahma appeared, he asked for so many benedictions. I should not be killed by this, I should not be killed by that. So that is so related to the body. The false ego can never be killed by all of these things. No weapons can actually destroy the false ego. We may be externally destroying so many things. We may be really wearing the dress of a devotee, wearing tilak, everything. But this false ego, to get rid of that is so difficult. That is what keeps us rooted to this material world. So that is the first thing that comes, false ego, because that is the conception because of which we have conditional life. So that is the first thing. So false ego comes out, and then the 3 modes are also manifested. And when this false ego interacts with these 3 modes, then all the other manifestations come out. So the first thing is false ego mixes with goodness. Because the first thing is goodness, because Mahavishnu, when he glances, Mahavishnu is an emblem. So naturally, Shuddha Sattva. So the first mode that is naturally manifested from Krishna Mahavishnu is the mode of goodness. Right? So mode of goodness mixes with false ego, it produces mind. It is very surprising to know that mind is produced from the mode of goodness. And then a false ego mixes with passion to produce the intelligence and the senses, the 10 senses, the 5 knowledge acquiring and the 5 working senses. Then, actually, Bhagavatam explains that the 5 senses are produced. There is a difference between production and manifestation. Manifestation happens later, so it's a bit confusing. And then, false ego mixes with the mode of ignorance and produces the actual gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, ether. Right? This is the cycle, in brief. And then, of course, so all of these, we know that there are about 23, 24 elements are there, and there are different classifications. But all of these subtle senses, I mean, the material gross elements, subtle elements, the 10 senses, mind, intelligence, ego, and contaminated consciousness, all of this constitute of 24 material elements. And then you add time to that, it becomes 25 material elements. Because time is an active factor that actually causes the transformation and agitation. The time, the material modes. So all of this, though, this is how the manifestation takes place. And it's good to understand how the gross elements manifest also. It is very nicely explained. And in Sanskrit, you should remember the sequence. Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. This is the sequence. So if you remember in Sanskrit, it's easier to understand. So the first the sense or the sense object that comes out is sound. So after this mixing of false ego with ignorance, when the sound comes out, the sound is the first sense object to come out in the whole creation. That is why it is known as Shabda Brahma. It is a sound, and it is written in Vedas that it is a sound that entangles us and the sound that liberates us. Because there are so many sounds in the material world, if you are hearing non-spiritual sounds, then we get so much entangled. You know, the other day also I was giving an example to somebody that many years ago, maybe I would have heard some music, non-devotional of course. And suddenly when I heard this after many years, I could not forget it. Just for a moment I heard and it kept on ringing inside my mind. That is the power of sound. Right? The sound actually entangles us and sound liberates us. That is why Mahamantra, chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, that liberates us. So sound is very important. That is the first thing to come out. From sound, the sky is manifested, and the sense of hearing, which is the ear, manifests. So sound is a subtle form, and from this the gross, ear, and the sky manifests. So always the creation comes from the subtle to the gross. Then the next is, first is Shabda, then Sparsha, touch. And then the combination of material modes and, or rather the sound and the sky then transform into touch, the sense of touch. And from touch comes air and the sense of the skin, right? The feeling of touch. So the subtle sense produces the gross again. And then the third thing that comes out is Shabda Sparsha Rupa. So the form, the sense of form, that is form object that we perceive with the eyes. So the eye is the sense that perceives the form. And the corresponding material element for that is fire. Then after this, the fourth thing is rasa or taste. From the taste manifests water and our tongue. And then the last thing to come out is the sense of smell. From the smell comes earth and what else? The sense of nose, the olfactory sense. So this is how the sequence is: Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. And earth contains all the qualities of the previous elements. So this is the grossest. Because earth we can smell, of course. Smelling is the natural property of earth. We can taste all the vegetables that are produced, fruits are produced. Smell, of course, is there. Then touch, we can touch, of course. And then form is there. And sound is there also, right? Earth also has sound. So all of these qualities from the previous elements are also passed to the next. It inherits. So that's why earth contains everything. And then if you reverse it out, you can go like that in sequence. So this is the way in which the creation happens. So that's a summary presentation of how, because it's important for us to understand where all these elements fit in together: inferior energy, subtle, gross, and what is the living entity doing with all this, right? So in that chapter, very nicely is explained. So there is a particular verse in which Devahuti Mata, as a prelude to this description by Kapiladev, she asks the questions in 3:25:11. It's a very famous verse. Then I forget the last two lines. So this verse is very important, where Devoti Mata is asking a question to Kapila Devi. She says that, I want to understand, my Lord, what is the difference between this Purusha and Prakriti? And you are the most qualified person to answer this, and that's why I'm surrendering unto you. So that is a process by which a sincere student submits himself to the spiritual master and asks inquiry. And then the spiritual master will then respond. So there this Prakriti and Purusha is very important. Prabhupada explains in the purport, if you go back and read later, 325.11, very important purport. Normally, our understanding of Prakriti and Purusha means that male and female. Purusha means male and Prakriti means female. But one level of understanding, yes, it is correct. But the actual understanding of Prakriti Purusha, very nicely Prabhupada explains there. That, and here also, Krishna is telling that, Apara Prakriti and Para Prakriti. Very clearly he says, Apara Prakriti is matter, yes, we understand. But the jivas, the conditioned souls also are Prakriti. No distinction between male and female. Everybody is Prakriti. It's just that we are inferior nature and the material matter is, we are superior nature, the matter is inferior nature. That's all. Everybody is Prakriti, but Prakriti means feminine. That's the definition. Prakriti is feminine and the only masculine person or the male is Purusha. And who is Purusha? Krishna. So Krishna is the only Purusha, everyone else is Prakriti. And because of the bodily conception or because of the body we have embedded in right now, engaged in right now, we may temporarily have this Purusha mentality and Prakriti mentality, or female and male. But that's just this lifetime, right? Next lifetime we don't know which body we're going to take. Previous lifetime we don't know what. So the whole sequence doesn't really matter, right? So actual understanding of Prakriti means it's feminine and Purusha means only Krishna. So this is the correct understanding. But in the material world, what happens? It's completely opposite. Whether we are a male, whether we are in a male body or a female body, our tendency is to be Purusha. So please understand this. Actually, we all have a tendency to be Purusha. Doesn't matter whether it is a woman or a man. Everybody wants to exploit. Everybody wants to enjoy in this material world. That is a tendency of a Purusha. So it doesn't really matter whether we are in the male body or female body. So this is what I was telling earlier, that there is a contradiction between our nature and what we are trying to do here. Our nature is to be Prakriti, but we are trying to be Purusha. So how can this be, it can never be consistent, right? It can never exist like this. It cannot sustain when we are trying to do something that we are not. So we are acting like false Purushas, because our original tendency why we came to the material world is we also want to imitate Krishna. And Krishna is the only Purusha. Obviously, there is no scope for any other Purusha in the spiritual world. He is the only one. Ekala Ishvara Krishna, Ar Sab Bhratya. Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Ekala Ishvara Krishna. Krishna is the only supreme personality of Godhead. What to speak of us, even Lord Balramji, who is an immediate expansion of Krishna, his mood is that of a Bhritya. That's why he's known as Sevaka Bhagavan. Sevya Bhagavan and Sevaka Bhagavan. He is always in the mood of rendering service to Krishna. That is his mood. So what to speak of us? How can we be Purusha? We can only act like Purushas. But that's not reality. Acting means it's a show. It won't last for long. It will last only for some time. So the Prakriti trying to act like Purusha is a contradiction. That is why Devoti Mata is asking these questions, and Kapila Dev is answering that actually that is through this explanation of creation. He's telling that actually we are of superior nature, but we are still nature or Prakriti, and hence we should never behave like Purusha. Our job is to render devotional service to Purusha, and that is a quality that makes us superior to dull matter. Dull matter cannot render service. But the superior nature or the superior energy can very well render service. And not only can he render service, he can engage the material energy to render service to Krishna. That is the correct understanding of these three: material energy, spiritual energy, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That the living entity's responsibility is to just engage everything in the service of Krishna. And the best example is Srila Prabhupada. If you just read Lilamrita, everywhere Prabhupada, when he went to the West, every aspect, every stage of his preaching, he was only concerned about how can I use this in the service of Krishna? How can I use this person in the service of Krishna? Or how can I use this matter in the service of Krishna? Like acquiring buildings or whatever properties and everything that is material. Prabhupada used them all in the service of Krishna. Even to the extent of the microphone, Prabhupada used to say that even this is not material if it's engaged in the service of Krishna. To that extent, his consciousness was always fixed on Krishna. That to engage or use everything, and this is Yukta Vairagya, that you engage everything material, not to reject, but to use them in the service of Krishna. That is the correct understanding. One example Prabhupada used to give that, let's say one person is walking on the road and he finds one purse, just lying there unowned. So you can do anything. Either you leave it as it is, just leave it and go, or somebody may just pick up and keep it, or somebody will find who's the actual person to whom that belongs. So there are three things. So Prabhupada is going to explain, goes on to explain that a devotee is the third person who tries to find out, devotion service, the third person who's trying to find who the owner is. So which means anything that we find, anything that is material, should be used in the service of the owner, that is Krishna. And Krishna will later explain that everything is actually coming from him. Mattaha parataram na anyat. There is nothing else beyond me, everything is coming from me. Aham sarvasya Prabhu. So everything has to be used in his service. And the Mayavadis are that like, reject everything. No, this is false. So he will just disregard the purse. I don't care what happens to it. But that's a inferior thinking. And of course, the karmis would take and go, right? They will use it to enjoy. So this is how Prabhupada goes on to explain this very simple analogy, but very deep point to understand, to make us understand that devotional service means to use everything in the service of Krishna. Then in the first canto, 7th chapter, and incidentally, that verse is also 174 and 175. Same as Bhagavad Gita, 7.4 and 7.5. So easy to remember. And this is very important. Vyasadeva, before this chapter, we know that in the 4th chapter of first canto, Vyasadeva is reflecting. His reflections are presented. He's reflecting that, why am I feeling dissatisfied at heart? And this is Vyasadeva. After compiling all the Vedas, after compiling all the Puranas, Upanishads, Itihasas, that is his condition. That after doing all this, he was feeling dissatisfied. So this is one very important point for our preaching also. When people often ask that, there are so many literatures, so many Puranas. There are Shiva Purana, which claims Shiva is supreme. Devi Puranas are there. Then Skanda Purana is there. Linga Purana. All these Puranas are there. How do we know that Krishna is supreme? You're saying Krishna is supreme. This is one explanation we can give. That after compiling all the Puranas, Vyasadeva was not happy. He was not pleased. If a literary incarnation of Krishna, who has compiled so much Vedic literature, if he is not pleased, what to speak of us who are trying to worship anyone else apart from Krishna? Of course, it doesn't mean that we disrespect others. We respect them. But the worship is only to Krishna. Prabhupada is very, very clear. When the society was being registered, immediately Prabhupada said, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Then many devotees asked, no, Prabhupada, why don't you put International Society for God Consciousness? Prabhupada said, no, God is vague. Krishna, God is Krishna. That's why it has to be very, very clear. So Prabhupada was so very clear. Always Prabhupada was very clear that the message has to be undiluted. It has to be presented as it is, the facts. So we should be very clear that if Vyasadeva was dissatisfied, then we should understand what happened after that. So Vyasadeva was thinking deeply in his heart. And he was contemplating, and he being an exalted soul, he could hear the voice of the super soul. So the super soul spoke to him in 1.4.31. It's a very famous verse. He says that Kimva Bhagavata Dharma. So he's thinking that why am I not satisfied? So in that verse it is said that maybe because I have not broadcast the glories, or I have not broadcast devotion service which is pleasing to the Lord and to his devotees and to everyone. So maybe that is the reason why. So that maybe means it's the voice of the super soul that is inspiring him, telling him that this is the reason for your dissatisfaction. And within some time, Narada Muni appears there. This is how the Lord reciprocates. He will send his pure devotee. Whenever somebody is sincerely contemplating, sincerely thinking that, what is the problem, what is the solution for my problem, immediately Krishna will reciprocate. He sends Narada Muni. And Narada Muni in 158, a few verses later, he confirms whatever Vyasadeva was thinking. This is a very important point. Whatever the super soul instructs, is confirmed by the spiritual master. That's why there is no difference between the instruction of the Lord and the instruction of the spiritual master, bona fide spiritual master. This is a very, very important point for us. Otherwise, we will say that we don't have the hear the voice of the super soul. That's why the spiritual master appears in front of us. And whatever he says must be considered the instructions of the Supreme Lord. And Prabhupada writes in the 1134 purport, the plans of the devotees are as good as the plans of the Lord. That's it, period. No confusion. The devotees of the Lord are their plans are as good as the plans of the Lord. We don't need to have no scope for any confusion. We cannot say, no, I don't know the plan of the Lord. The devotees' plans, whatever the devotee is telling, that is the plan of the Lord. So here we see the example of Vyasadeva. Whatever he was feeling inside was confirmed by Narada Muni in 158, and he told exactly the same thing. Because you have not broadcast the glories of the Lord, Bhavatanudita Prayam, Yasho Bhagavato Amalam, Yenai Vasona Tusheta, Manyeta Darshanam Kilam. Because you have not broadcast the glories of the Supreme Lord, that is why you're feeling dissatisfied. So please glorify in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. That is how Vyasadeva compiled Srimad Bhagavatam. That is why that creation of Vyasadeva, or that compilation, was in his state of maturity. After experiencing all of this, it was in his heightened state of maturity that Vyasadeva compiled Srimad Bhagavatam, and that is why Srimad Bhagavatam is considered the topmost of literatures, Amala Puran. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has said, Srimad Bhagavatam Puranam Amalam, Yad Vaishnavanam Priyam. It's Amala Puran. There is no mala or dirt in this. And that is why whatever Bhagavatam says is the absolute truth, that Krishna is Supreme Personality Body. So other literatures may be saying, but Bhagavatam is the right conclusion, because it is the natural commentary on the Vedanta. End of all the Vedas, his conclusion is that Krishna is Supreme Personality Body. So when Narada Muni is instructing him that you please compile Srimad Bhagavatam, and he gives him the process that you first meditate on the Supreme Lord. So in 174, it is explained that Bhakti Yogena Manasi, which means in devotional service he was performing the meditation, not for any other objective, only to please the Lord and to please his spiritual master. In Bhakti Yoga, he performed the meditation. Bhakti Yogena Manasi, that's how the verse starts. Samyak Pranihite Male. So he was started in a purified state, he was concentrating, he was meditating on the Supreme Lord. And the vision that he saw was beautiful, which is connected to this verse again. These two verses, 74, 75, where it is said that he could clearly see in his vision, which was approved by Narada Muni, his spiritual master, and which was in line of disciplic succession, and which was in the authorized devotional service. So everything is perfect. Whatever he saw was perfect. He saw the Supreme Lord, he saw the living entities, and he saw the material nature. Three subjects we're discussing here. He saw the Supreme Lord, he saw the material nature, and he saw the living entity. And what did he see? He saw that the Supreme Lord was in control of everything. The material nature was controlling the living entities. The living entities were under control of the material nature. That means those who are struggling in the material world. And the material nature herself was standing behind the Lord as a shadow. She was shy to come in front of the Lord. So this was a beautiful vision that Vyasadeva saw. So many things Prabhupada writes in those two purports, 174 and 175, which is very good. Please read. It's very important purport. We don't have time to go into detail on that, but please you can go back and read. So in 174, 175, he explains this beautiful vision that he saw, that the Lord was controlling both the material nature as well as the living entities. Right? So that is what Prabhupada explains here in the purport. And he quotes this beautiful verse, right? 1087:30 in the purport. And by the way, that verse is a prayer by the personified Vedas. And it is sung in a very beautiful tune. So that prayer, the personified Vedas are saying, Prabhupada writes there, that if we assume that the living entities are also controllers, then it's not consistent with the overall Vedic understanding. But if you understand that they are actually under your control, then everything falls into place. Such a beautiful prayer. So this was the vision of Vyasadeva. So when he saw that everyone was controlled by Krishna, by the Supreme Lord, and the material energy was standing like a shadow behind the Lord, and Prabhupada writes that she was ashamed of her position. She was standing like that, because she is actually performing a very thankless task, so to speak. Right? She's actually she's not happy with whatever she's doing, because ideally as a mother, she wants everyone to go back to Krishna. But then she sees all of us struggling. So because of our desires and because of our whatever karmic activities and everything, she has to accordingly do whatever is necessary. That is like a punishment. Prabhupada writes there in the purport. It's like a kind father. Sometimes he to take care of his son who is not studying properly or following things properly. It's out of love. It's out of kindness, right? So that is the role of material nature, Durga Ma, because she's doing a thankless task, and she's a great personality. She's on behalf of the Lord. She's doing all of the services. So that's how Vyasadeva saw. And then in 175, Prabhupada writes very nicely that Vyasadeva actually saw this vision. So he understood the problem, and he got the remedy also from this beautiful vision. And the remedy is Srimad Bhagavatam. After getting this vision, in this realization, he wrote. So it is not some concoction. It's not like a novel that people write, out of some, under the influence of drugs or drinks, they write something, concoctions, and becomes a big hit, big novel. It's not like that. Genuine vision, actual vision that is confirmed by the authorities, Narada Muni, whatever he saw is what is written in Bhagavatam. And that is why it's genuine, right? And that is why his realization is completely presented here, and that's why it is Amala Puran. It's the only literature of its kind. So in this way, we understand that the Lord is the supreme controller, and Prabhupada writes here nicely that only in that condition can we really, truly come out of this illusion. And I'll conclude with a nice exchange between Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Sanatana Goswami. Now that in few days' time we have the glorious appearance of the Lord as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance day. So it's good to reflect on his pastimes, and especially with the Shad Goswamis, especially with Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. So in Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which is an extract from the summary of Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a chapter which talks about teachings to Sanatana Goswami. So I'll just maybe talk about a little bit, which relates to these verses. So when Sanatana Goswami, we know that he escaped from the prison after Nawab had put him in prison, and somehow or the other he escaped. And then he came to Banaras. So when he came to Banaras, he was in a very bad condition, externally looking very bad, like a beggar. So with all the beard and rugged shawl and all that. So when he came in front of the gate of Chandrasekhar Acharya's house where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was staying, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu of course understood that Sanatana Goswami has come. So he asked him to go and welcome the devotee, welcome the Vaishnava. When Chandrasekhar Acharya saw him, he didn't feel that he looked like a Vaishnava. So he had his doubt. But then immediately Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came and embraced Sanatana Goswami. And Sanatana Goswami is feeling so bad that, my body is so bad. Why, oh Lord, why are you embracing me? So the Lord said, I'm getting purified by touching you. How humble the Lord is by embracing his devotee. So in this way, the beautiful exchange happens. And then after that, for many days, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Sanatana Goswami. So the very first time after this, when Sanatana Goswami approached Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he placed himself so humbly, and that is very instructive for us. And Prabhupada writes there that this is how a disciple must approach a spiritual master. He humbly submits himself and says that, I don't know, people say that I am a very learned person, I'm this, I'm that, but actually I'm fool number one. I don't even know that, this material world, I'm suffering so much, and I don't know any remedy of how to get out of this suffering. And people are calling me learned. What kind of a learned person I am? So, oh my Lord, I'm humbly submitting in front of you that, please tell me, who am I? Why am I going through these sufferings? And what is the way out of this? So these three questions you will ask. Very important. So, who am I? Why am I going through these sufferings? And what is the remedy for these sufferings? And he will ask also one more question, that in the liberated state, what is my duty? And Prabhupada, sometimes we just miss this point. But Prabhupada clarifies there that this means that liberation is not the only thing. There is something beyond liberation. Otherwise, Sanatana Goswami will not ask, what is my duty in liberated state? See, normally we think liberation means that's the end, right? But there are activities in the liberated state. So Prabhupada writes there to explain to us that this impersonal concept of liberation is not the end of everything. That is just one aspect of it. But actual activity begins after liberation. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma, na shochati na kankshati. The devotional service really begins from that platform. So Sanatana Goswami is asking these questions, and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very happy. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then starts talking about Krishna being the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his multifarious energies. And he talks about these verses specifically from 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. He says that Krishna has superior energy in the form of living entities and inferior energy in the form of his material elements. And our duty actually is to, as a representative of superior nature, we have to render service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because we are all parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. And it is a duty of the Supreme Lord. So this few instructions Chaitanya Mahaprabhu will nicely present, and he is quoting references from different places in Bhagavatam and Vishnu Purana also. He quotes many references to explain this point. And then in conclusion, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu actually quoted one allegory, one story that Madhvacharya has put in his comments in the Bhagavatam, 5th canto. So it's a very short story, very nice. There was a very poor Brahmana. His name is Sarvagnya. And he was so poor that he didn't have even day-to-day means. He was not able to manage. So one day, one astrologer came to him, and he was surprised to see his condition. That actually you are so rich. I'm surprised to see your poor condition. You have a big treasure waiting for you. Huh? Please go and find out. It is hidden. It is dug behind your house. So I'll tell him that, but you have to take care before digging it out. There are some conditions. He says that you don't dig on the southern side. Don't dig on the western side. Don't dig on the northern side. Only dig on the eastern side. So he'll say that southern side, there are some wasps, very dangerous insects. They'll bite you to death. So be careful. Don't dig on the southern side. On the northern side, there is a big serpent. The moment you try to dig, he will bite you and you will die. On the western side, there is a yaksha, a Brahma Rakshas or yaksha, who will also kill you. So you have to be careful or dig only on the eastern side. Eastern side, you will find the treasure. So in a way, what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explaining there is that the actual treasure is a devotion service. Devotion service is the only treasure, and everybody is eligible to get that treasure. So actually, we are all the eligible heirs of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the most opulent, the richest, the greatest personality in this universe. So there's nothing lacking if you take shelter of Krishna. And the other three directions, Prabhupada explains that one refers to your karma kanda process, where you'll get bitten. Ultimately, you'll not feel it, but it's really getting bitten in the sense you'll keep going through the cycle of birth and death. Then the northern side, the serpent is your yogic process, Ashtanga yoga, and then you get caught up in the mystic power and you forget Krishna. Then the other direction was the yaksha, which is your jnana yoga, which means impersonal liberation, impersonal understanding. And devotional service, the eastern side. That's why in our worship, east is always considered very auspicious. So eastern side is actual treasure. So that's how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is explained to Sanatana Goswami, is that the real treasure that we all have is a devotional service. And that is what we should try to find out with the help of a bona fide spiritual master. Take shelter of a bona fide spiritual master, sadhu, shastra, and then we are sure to get this treasure. And that actually is the perfection of our life. So I'll conclude the discussion here. I'll ask if there are any comments or any realizations devotees want to share. Yes, Prabhuji.
Thanks for the night class. You mentioned about Purusha and Prakriti, and you mentioned that Krishna is the only Purusha. So does that mean that none of his expansions or manifestations are Purushas, or all of Krishna's manifestations are also?
Yeah, that's a good question, Prabhu. Actually, Prabhupada writes all the Vishnu Tattvas are in the category of Purusha. That's why the three Vishnus are called Purusha avatars. So they are all, it's a good question, but yes. But Krishna, yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, please.
No, that's it, Prabhu.
Just one more clarification. You were talking about false ego combining with the mode of goodness, and the output is the mind.
Mind.
Right? And false ego combining with mode of
Passion. Intelligence.
Generally, intelligence is supposed to be higher than the mind. So how do we?
Yeah. This question was there for me also, but I couldn't find an answer directly from there. But this is how it is explained there. Uh, because I think in those verses, if you study carefully, Prabhupada writes or Kapildev explains the functions of the mind and intelligence. The thing is, the mind actually is the one that causes the entanglement in this world. But at the same time, the mind also can be the cause of liberation. Mana eva hi manushyanam karanam bandham mokshayo, both karanam bandham mokshayo. So that is why that's the only reason I could think that it's coming from goodness, because it can ultimately liberate the intelligence has a lot of other functions, but generally is associated with the mode of passion. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone? Anything else? Yes, Prabhu.
Actually, when we look at one of the most technical sections of Bhagavatam, actually, when we are mentioning about Kapila, Dev and Deva, that is one of the most technical and one of the most difficult. It's not, there is no pastime, there is just Purusha Prakriti and all.
Yes.
24 elements. Typically, it's like a son who is speaking to his elderly mother, and his father has left her, So the discussion between mother and son, and that the mother is actually inquiring, this is something which is, so typically when we speak about Mataji, this is not a typical question that we
Yeah.
answer in one way. And that is, so one of the most technical sections of Bhagavatam is a discussion with the questions of Mata, when the elderly woman and
Son
is there. Similarly, about one of the most beautiful prayers that Prabhupada has, has elaborated and given lectures of lectures on his teachings of
Kunti Mata.
Kunti Mata is there. And towards the end of Bhagavatam is also the Kyagopi Geet actually. So in one way, considering the Women's Day also that just passed by, one of the most important sections are about questions and the
Yes.
pastimes of women actually. Just the observation.
No, you're right, Rohit. But in case of Devoti Mata, actually it is coming from her realization, because she felt genuinely that she's wasted a lot of time in a grihastha life in doing sense enjoyment. When that realization comes, when that virakti comes, naturally knowledge comes. That is why this jnana and vairagya are automatic byproducts of devotional service. That is why she was able to speak with so much of conviction and so much of understanding. It was based on a realization that, I have wasted so much time. Right? Generally speaking, Prabhupada writes, no offense meant, that women generally are very attached to the household life. Right? They like to stay in the house. That's why it is recommended in the Shastras that they simply follow the husband. If the husband is a devotee, this thing is guaranteed. They simply serve the husband in his devotional service, and of course your own devotional service also. So generally the tendency is that they are more closer to the family, this thing, ties and all that. But here, Devoti Mata, being an extraordinary devotee, she understood that she wasted a lot of time in all the sense enjoyment with Kardama Muni. And when Kardama Muni left the house, she realized that I wasted so much time, and that virakti, that detachment, gave her so much of knowledge. Pingala, did you speak about Pingala earlier? Pingala also towards the end of Bhagavatam. She was a prostitute, but how much of look at her prayers. That prayers were born from detachment. So Krishna gives the understanding. When you feel a little bit detached, he will give you he will supply you the necessary understanding. It's actually all coming from Krishna. But Krishna will reveal only to the sincere soul. Thank you, Prabhu. It's a nice observation. I think we are, it's just about the time, and just few announcements, important announcements. As we know, that 18th is the glorious Gaur Purnima, appearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we'll have a program. Unlike the last few festivals which we have had in the center, this time we are having in another venue. So that's very good. It will be in Futsing, Singapore Futsing Association, where I think devotees know we have had a few festivals. It's here only, Jalan Basar. So it'll be on 18th evening. It'll start around 6:30. Look out for the emails, or not the email, the announcement tomorrow in the WhatsApp group. Right after the Bhagavatam class, it'll be opened. So bookings will open. So please make your bookings, and please don't feel bad if you don't get a seat, because it all depends on who is a first come first serve basis, right? And it will be also screened live. So devotees who are not able to participate in the actual event will get to see the festival live on Facebook and YouTube. And the program will be simple. It will be kirtan, a lot of kirtan, and there will be a drama. After a long while, we'll get to witness drama, actual drama on the stage, a short drama. Then the Parsati Prabhuji will give a class on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's appearance day. And anything else, Prabhu? Today? Okay. So that's the God Purnima program for short. So look out for the announcement tomorrow after the class morning, and then you can make your bookings. And today we are thankful to His Grace Madan Mukund Prabhu for the Prasadam sponsorship. 3 times to thank Prabhu and family. Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Hare Krishna. We'll have Gaurarti now. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki. Welcome, Prabhu.
Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Kiba Jayo Jayo Gaura Chande Arati Kashoba Kiba Jayo Jayo Gaura Chande Arati Kashoba Gana Vitata जगमान लोभा जाह्नवी तटवने जगमान लोभा किबा दाखीने निताय चांद बामे गदाधरा किबा दाखीने निताय चांद बामे गदाधरा निकटे अद्वैतासिनी वासछत्रधरा निकटे अद्वैतासिनी वासछत्रधरा किबा बोशियाचे गौरचान रत्न सिंहासने किबा बोशियाचे गौरचान रत्न सिंहासने आरती करेन ब्रह्मा आदिदेव गणे आरती करेन ब्रह्मा आदिदेव गणे किबा नर हरि आदि कोरी समर दुलाया किबा नर हरि आदि कोरी कमर दुलाया संजया मुकुंदा बासु घोष आदि गया संजया मुकुंदा बासु घोष आदि गया शंख बाजे घंटा बाजे बाजे करताला किबा शंखा बाजे घंटा बाजे बाजे करताला माधुर मृदंग बाजे परम रसाला माधुर मृदंग बाजे परम रसाला शंखा बाजे घंटा बाजे माधुर 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 बाजे शंखा बाजे घंटा बाजे माधुर माधुर मधुर बाजे शंखा बाजे घंटा बाजे माधुर 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 बाजे माधुर 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 बाजे माधुर 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 बाजे शंखा बाजे घंटा 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 बाजे माधुर 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 बाजे माधुर 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 बाजे निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल किबा बहु कोटि चंद्रजीनी वदन उज्ज्वला किबा किबा बहु कोटि चंद्रजीनी वदन उज्ज्वला देश वनमाला गोरे जलमाला देश वनमाला गोरे जलमाला किबा शुवा सुखा नारदा प्रेमी गदा गदा Shiva Shiva Sukha Narada Premi Gada Gada Bhakati Vinoda Deke Korara Sampada Bhakati Vinoda Deke Korara Sampada Shiva Jayo Jayo Gaura Chande Rarati Kashoma Janavi Tatavani Jagamana Lobha Gaurange Rarati Kashobha Jagajana Mana Loba Gaurange Rarati Kashobha Jagajana Mana Loba Gaurange Rarati Kashobha Jagajana Mana Loba Jagajana Mana Loba Jagajana Mana Loba Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Tama Om Vishnu Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktarinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavrinda Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadramani. Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Jaya Subhadramai Jaya Sudarshana. Jaya Pancha Tattva Jaya Pancha Tattva Jaya Pancha Tattva Jaya Pancha Tattva. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva, Jaya Guru Deva. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol.
जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजाकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस अभय चरणारविंद भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय ओम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्रजाकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती महाराज ठाकुर की नामाचार्य हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथ पुरी धाम की गंगा माई की जय यमुना माई की जय तुलसी देवी की जय भक्ति देवी की जय हरिनाम संकीर्तन की हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की श्री श्री राधा माधव की श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा माई की पंचतत्व भगवान की गौर निताय की समवेत भक्त वृंद की अनंत कोटि वैष्णव भक्त वृंद की निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे all Guru assembled devotees, all Guru assembled devotees, all Guru assembled devotees, all Gurus to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all Gurus to Srila Prabhupada, all Gurus to Srila Gurudev, Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.
Namaste Narasimhaya Namaste Narasimhaya Dala Dala Dadaine Dala Dala Dadaine Hiranyakashi Purakshaha Hiranyakashi Purakshaha Shilatankanakhalare Shilatankanakhalare Ito Narasimha Parato Narasimha Ito Narasimha Parato Narasimha Yato Yato Yami Tato Narasimha Yato Yato Yami Tato Narasimha Bahi Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha Bahi Narasimha Hridaye Narasimha Narasimha Madhin Sharanam Prapade Narasimha Madhin Sharanam Prapade Kamakara Kamalavare Naga Adhuta Shringa Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringa Veshwajita Nalari Rupa Jai Jai
जय भक्ति विद्या नरसिंह भगवान की
जय।
जय भक्ति विनोद महाराज की
जय।
नील प्रभुपाद की
जय।
जय बोल
हरि बोल। बोलतोय एअरकॉन रूम मध्ये जाऊया. अरे यार मी तुला मध्येच म्हणणार होते मला इतकी अडचण